The night my ex-wife walked back into my home, she looked my daughter in the eyes and called the woman who saved our lives just the help. Tell me something, if the person who abandoned your child demanded you fire the one who held her while she read, who would you choose? And if you think the answer is simple, stick with me, because it wasn't. Not for me. My name is Aid. And what I'm about to tell you is not a movie script, not some neat little fairy tale. It's the messiest, most painful, most beautiful chapter of my life, and yeah, I'm still living with the consequences of every choice I made. You can judge me later. I'm not here to beg for sympathy. I'm here to be honest. Back then, I was that guy. People like to compliment from a distance. Solid career, respected architect in Lagos. Nice designs on billboards. A man who looked like he had his life together. Step past the front door of my apartment, though, and the truth hit you like the smell of old food and regret. Dirty plates stacked on the table papers everywhere. Laundry in corners. The TV remote hiding under takeout boxes. That quiet, heavy air that says, nobody here is really okay. But my daughter lived there inside that quiet. Ada was 8. Small and serious, with eyes that used to light up at everything. Always watching, always measuring the mood in the room before she spoke. Her mother, Stella, had walked out a year earlier, said she was finding herself like we were some suitcase she'd misplaced. She left a note, some vague words about needing space, needing more from life, and then silence. No calls, no birthdays, no good nights. You know that kind of selfishness that's dressed up as self-discovery, that. One morning, the day everything started unraveling, I woke up with my heart already racing. Sunlight cutting across my face. Clock saying 700, and I knew we were late. I jumped up, ran out of my room, almost tripped over a pile of laundry, stepped into the living room, and hated what I saw. The same mess I kept promising I'd tackle tomorrow. I went to Ada's room, knocked, walked in trying to sound upbeat. "Good morning, princess." And she was sitting on the edge of the bed in a faded dress, not her uniform. I asked gently, "Why aren't you dressed for school?" She didn't look at me right away, just picked at the hem of that dress and whispered, "My uniforms are all dirty, Daddy." That's it. Simple. Soft. But it landed like a punch. I had forgotten the laundry again. My job was to protect her, and I couldn't even give her a clean shirt. I scrambled, grabbed a decent dress from her closet, forced a smile. "Wear this today. I'll wash your uniforms tonight. I promise." She nodded. No fight. No tantrum. Just quiet acceptance, and somehow that hurt even more. She was starting to expect disappointment. In the kitchen, the fridge was almost empty. 2 eggs, a piece of yam, 1 lonely slice of bread. I threw something together, burnt the egg a little, put it on her plate. She sat there, small bag on her shoulder, out of uniform, picking at breakfast like she was trying not to cry. Then she said, "Daddy, I have a big math test today." And I swear my heart slid right down into my stomach. Wrong day to mess up, wrong child to fail. The drive to school felt like a punishment. Traffic was brutal along the Lekki-Epe Expressway, horns shouting, heat creeping in through the windows. My mind racing circles around guilt, uniforms, food, homework, loneliness, all of it, stacking up. When we pulled up to the gate, Ada didn't hug me, didn't kiss me, didn't say bye. She just opened the door and ran head down, praying nobody noticed her. Watching her run like that, I sat there with my hands on the steering wheel, feeling completely useless. Then I heard a horn next to me turned, and there was my oldest friend Femi staring at me with that "we're about to have a hard conversation" face. He jerked his head like "follow me." So later that morning he came over. He walked into my apartment, looked around once, and went quiet. And that silence was louder than yelling. He sat down, leaned forward, and said, "Aid, I'm worried." I tried to brush it off. "I'm fine." He didn't buy it. "No, you're not. I saw Ada. No uniform. Eyes red. You're late. You look like you haven't slept in 3 days. What's going on, man?" I snapped a little. Easy for him to talk. He had a wife at home. Kids who always had ironed clothes and real breakfast. He didn't know what it was like to be everything at once. Father, mother, provider, cleaner, comforter, punching bag for your own guilt. I said something sharp. I don't even remember what. You know when you're angry at yourself, so you bite the person closest to you. He didn't flinch. "Listen," he said. "Steady. You're doing your best, but your best is not enough right now. Not because you're a bad father, but because you're just one person. You need help. A real housekeeper, a nanny, someone who'll take care of this place so you can take care of Ada. A stranger in Stella's old space." My gut twisted. "I don't trust people like that in my house," I said, voice low. "Not after." I didn't have to finish. Femi nodded, calmer now. "Not all women are Stella. Let me talk to my cousin. She runs an agency. She has good people carefully checked. Let's at least meet one." I didn't want to admit he was right. But I pictured Ada's face that morning, the way she said, "I miss Mommy," some nights in this small, shaking voice. And I knew if I stayed stubborn, I wasn't protecting her, I was punishing her. So I sighed and said, "Okay, find someone." That was it. One tired, desperate yes. That was the yes that changed everything. The next day, around 2 p.m., my doorbell rang. I had cleared the worst of the mess that morning, trying to make it look like I hadn't completely lost control. I opened the door, and there she was. "Good afternoon, sir. My name is Grace. I'm here for the interview." She couldn't have been more than her late 20s. Simple blouse, clean skirt, hair tied back in a braid. Nothing flashy. But she stood with this quiet confidence, eyes leer steady. Not timid, not arrogant, just present. And then I realized I'd seen her before. A few weeks earlier when traffic had trapped me, and I'd been late picking Ada up from school. I'd panicked, and then found Ada sitting on a bench with a young woman. This same woman who stayed with her until I arrived. She had given Ada water, helped her with homework, made her laugh. I had thanked her quickly, rushed off, never expecting to see her again. Now she was on my doorstep. We sat. I asked the usual questions. Past experience, reasons for leaving references. She had worked for 2 families, both stable, both had written glowing letters. She left the last one because they relocated overseas, and she chose to stay close to her own people. She answered without hesitation. No rehearsed victim story, no drama, just straight facts. Then I told her the truth. No wife, long hours, sad child, messy house me, hanging by a thread. I told her I didn't want pity, I wanted consistency. She listened, Healy listened, and when I finished, she said quietly, "Children need to feel safe, sir. They need routine and love, and to know their parent is not alone. I can help with the house, but my priority will be Ada, if you let me." That word again. Help. Not save us, not rescue us, just help. I liked that, so I hired her. But I wrapped that decision in rules like armor. "You'll handle cleaning, cooking, laundry, Ada's schedule, homework, support," I said. "You'll be professional. No personal drama, no gossip, no crossing lines. This is about my daughter." She nodded. "I understand, sir. I didn't know yet that those walls I built weren't to protect Ada from Grace. They were to protect me from hope." The very next morning, I woke up ready for chaos out of habit, the scramble, the panic. But something was different. The air smelled like coffee and actual food. I walked out and stopped. Ada was at the table in a clean-ironed uniform, hair neatly braided lunchbox on standby plate of pancakes in front of her. She was mid-bite eyes, a little wide, like she couldn't believe it either. Grace moved in the kitchen, like she'd lived there for years, efficient calm. "Good morning, sir," she said with a small smile. "Breakfast is ready. Ada will be on time." I just stood there for a second, taking it in. It felt like someone had lifted a brick off my chest. On the drive to school, Ada was quiet, but it wasn't that heavy. Ashamed quiet, it was processing. When she got out, she squeezed my hand and whispered, "Thank you, Daddy." That was new. I got home that evening, braced out of habit for a sink full of plates and a dusty floor. Instead, the apartment was spotless. Papers, stacked clothes, folded floor, shining soft music playing somewhere. And then I heard it from the living room, Ada laughing. I walked in, and there they were on the floor playing Ludo Ada, full-on giggling trash, talking like a real kid. Grace looked up. "Welcome back, sir. Dinner is almost ready." Ada turned. "Daddy, look, I'm winning." That moment almost broke me in the best way. I hadn't heard my daughter sound like that since before Stella left. Days turned into weeks. Grace became this steady presence. Laundry done, meals on time. Schedules, tight homework, supervised little notes in Ada's lunchbox like, "You're brilliant," or "You've got this test." She never tried to erase Stella's memory. Never once said, "I'm your new mom." She just kept showing up. Ada bloomed. Laughter came back. No more hiding at the school gate. Her teachers mentioned she was more focused, more cheerful. At work, I stopped zoning out from exhaustion, knowing home wasn't falling apart without me. I started getting there on time just to be home in time for dinner. Now let me pause and ask you something. If someone walked into your broken house and without big speeches, gently stitched your child's world back together, how long before your heart got involved? You know what I mean? I fought it. Of course I did. She worked for me. She lived under my roof. I was still bleeding from what Stella did. But it's hard not to notice the person who notices everyone else. One rainy afternoon, I came home early, soaked from the storm, opened the door quietly and heard Grace's voice. She was on the sofa reading to Ada, both of them, under a blanket, the room warm and golden, while rain hammered the windows. Ada's head rested on her shoulder, completely at peace. They hadn't heard me yet. For a second, watching them, I felt like an intruder in my own home, like I was looking at a snapshot of the family I wished I'd had all along. Not perfect, not glamorous, but safe. I must have made a sound, because Grace looked up and smiled. "Welcome home, sir." Ada ran to hug me, chattering about the story. Later that night, I told Grace, "You can call me Aid if you like." She hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, Aid." And there was something soft in the way she said it that kept me up thinking. That was the calm. Then the storm called. One evening, my phone rang. Unknown number. I picked up while sorting through drawings at the table. "Hello." "Aid, it's me." That voice. I went cold. "Stella." She sounded relaxed, amused, like she'd just stepped out for a quick errand. "I'm back in Lagos. I want to see Ada. I'll come by tomorrow." Just like that, like she hadn't disappeared for a year. "No," I said, anger burning up my throat. "You don't get to just show up." She laughed. "Don't be dramatic. I'm her mother. I'll see you tomorrow at noon." And hung up. No apology, no explanation. Just entitlement. I sat there shaking phone still in my hand, all the old hurt roaring back when Grace came out with a tray. Saw my face and stopped. "Aid, are you all right? You look like you've seen a ghost." I could have brushed it off. But something about her steady eyes made it impossible to lie. So I told her. All of it. How Stella and I started out in love. How money and ambition and restlessness twisted things. How nothing was enough for her. How she left when being a wife and mother felt too small for her dreams. How I had to tell Ada some pretty version of the truth so it wouldn't break her completely. Grace didn't interrupt. She didn't try to fix it. When I finished, she said, "I'm sorry you both went through that," in this simple, honest voice that hit me harder than any speech. Then she added, "You're right to be careful, but you're not alone now. We'll handle tomorrow." That "we" felt like a lifeline. Here comes your pattern. Interrupt the twist, because what I didn't know at that moment was this. Stella wasn't back because she missed Ada, or regretted leaving. She was back because the life she chased had collapsed. The man with the fancy promises dumped her. Her money dried up, and suddenly the family she'd thrown away looked like a safe backup plan. Yeah, that happened. The next day at noon, doorbell rings. I open it, and there she is. Expensive dress, perfect hair, designer bag, perfume, strong enough to coat the whole hallway. She doesn't wait for an invitation. She walks right in, like nothing ever happened. "The place looks nice," she says, eyes scanning everything. "You must have hired help." Her gaze lands on Grace, and the temperature in the room drops 10 degrees. "You must be the nanny." You know the way some people can make a normal word sound like an insult? It was like that. Before I can react, she calls out, "Ada, baby, where are you?" Ada comes out of her room, stops dead when she sees her. Her lips part, "Mommy." It's a question and a wish all at once. Stella kneels, arms wide. "Come to Mommy, my sweet girl. I've missed you so much." She puts on tears like makeup. Ada steps into the hug, slowly unsure. I'm watching, stomach knotted. Grace quietly steps back, gives them space, doesn't claim anything. Just watches Ada with concern. That's who she is. After a few minutes of this performance, Stella looks around again, eyes cold, now measuring. She notices little things. Ada's hair nicely braided. The plants, the order, the warmth. "You've made yourself comfortable," she says to Grace with a tight smile. Tension hits the room like a wall. I suggest we talk privately. I ask Grace to take Ada to her room for a bit. As soon as they're out of sight, Stella shifts her tone. Softer, wounded, all broken little girl act. "I know you're angry, Ada. I made a mistake. I was confused. But I'm back now. I want my family. We can be like before. Better than before." If she'd said that, in the first month after leaving, maybe some part of me would have believed her. But after a year of silence, while Grace had been the one bandaging the damage, something in me stayed numb. "What do you really want, Stella?" I asked. She sighed like I was being difficult. "I want us back, you, me, and Ada, a proper family. But we can't do that with a stranger living here confusing my daughter. So obviously the nanny goes." There it was. The condition. The price of this neat little fantasy. And that's when the twist fully hit me, because a mutual friend had already mentioned something in passing before she came. How the rich guy Stella ran off with had dropped her, how she was crawling back into old circles. It clicked like a lock. She wasn't here out of love. She was here out of convenience. Tell me, do you think that's fair? For someone to abandon their child, then walk back in and say, "Fire the person who cared for her in my place so I can feel comfortable again." If it were you, what would you have done? I didn't answer her right away. She took my hesitation as leverage. "Just think about it," she said, putting her hand on my arm. "We can be a family again like we were meant to be. Get rid of her." Later, I went to check on Ada and found her on her bed crying quietly. I sat down beside her, heart in my throat. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" She looked at me. Swollen voice trembling. "Is Grace leaving?" That caught me off guard. Why would you think that? She swallowed. Because Mommy is back. When she was talking, she looked at Grace like she shouldn't be here. Are you going to send Grace away? I don't want her to go. She helps me with homework. She makes pancakes. She stays when I have bad dreams. She makes you smile. Out of the mouths of children right there. That was the moment everything snapped into focus for me. Ada wasn't choosing between two women she was holding on to, the one who actually stayed. She didn't know about adult betrayal and manipulation. She just knew who showed up at bedtime. I hugged her. Grace is not leaving because someone else shows up and says so. I told her more to myself than to her. I promise you that. When I walked down the hall, I noticed Grace's door slightly open. She was packing. Small suitcase on the bed. Her folded clothes hands shaking. Just a little. Grace, I said, stepping in. What are you dinks? She took a breath. I think it's best if I go aid. Your ex-wife is back. I don't want to cause trouble between you. Ada has her real mother now. You don't need me. That cut deeper than anything Stella had said. No, I said maybe too quickly. That's not how this works. You are not going anywhere. She looked at me surprised, like I'd just spoken another language. I'm just the help, she said quietly, throwing Stella's poison back at me without meaning to. I moved closer, shook my head. You are the one who turned this place back into a home. You're the one who sat on the floor with Ada when she cried. You're the one who put notes in her lunch so she wouldn't feel alone. You are not replaceable furniture. I move around to make someone else comfortable. Her eyes filled, but she stayed quiet. I took a slow breath, knowing this was the line I was crossing, the one I'd drawn myself. I know what I said when you came about keeping things professional about distance, but I can't lie anymore. I have feelings for you, Grace. Not gratitude, not confusion, real feelings. I don't want you to just work here. I want you in our lives for real. She stared at me stunned, then whispered. I felt something too from the beginning, but I never wanted to disrespect you or Ada or overstep. There's nothing to overstep, I said. You've been more of a mother to Ada this year than Stella ever tried to be. I was about to lean in, not for some dramatic movie kiss, but for the quiet kind that comes after months of unspoken truth when a voice sliced through the air. What exactly is going on here? Stella. She had come back early, or never really left the building. Who knows? She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, face twisted. So this is your decision, she spat. You're choosing the maid over your own wife, over your family. I stepped in front of Grace instinctively. First of all, I said calm in a way that surprised even me, you're not my wife. Second, she's not just anything. Not. Stella pointed at Grace, voice rising. You came into my home and stole my family. Grace flinched. I held my ground. No, I said steady. You left your family. You disappeared. Grace didn't steal anything. She helped keep your daughter from breaking. At that moment, Ada appeared behind Stella, drawn by the shouting eyes wide and scared. Stella saw her and flipped the switch again instantly. Soft arms wide. Ada, sweetie, come to mommy. This woman is trying to turn you against me, but I'm your real mother. Pattern interrupt time. I turned to Ada, dropped to my knees so we were eye to eye. Listen to me, I said softly. You don't have to answer anyone right now, but you do get to decide who you feel safe with. No one gets to force that. Not me, not her. You know who's been there for you. I know it sounds like a lot to place on a child, but the truth was already there. I wasn't asking her to choose DNA. I was asking her to name reality. Ada looked at Stella. Beautiful, frantic, a stranger who shared her features. Then she looked at Grace, the woman who braided her hair, sat through her tears, celebrated her small wins. And slowly, she walked to Grace and took her hand. No speeches, no drama, just that small hand gripping tight. That was it. That was the answer. Stella's face crumbled. and for a second I wondered if she finally understood what she'd thrown away. Then her eyes went hard. "Fine," she muttered, grabbing her purse. "You're making a mistake." She walked out, slammed the door so hard the walls shook. This time I didn't chase her. The silence that followed wasn't heavy like before. It was clean. Scary, yes. Uncertain, yes. But honest. That night at dinner, it was just the three of us. Ada poked at her food, then looked up at Grace, then at me. "So," she asked softly, "is she my new mom now?" Grace almost dropped her fork. I reached across the table, took her hand in mine, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Grace is a very special part of our family," I said. "And these things take time. But if it's okay with her for now, maybe you can call her Auntie Grace." Ada thought for a second, then smiled, quite unreal. "Okay, Auntie Grace." And just like that, a bridge formed between what we were and what we were becoming. 6 months later, my apartment didn't look like a widower's cave anymore. There were drawings taped to the walls, plants that weren't dying music on in the evenings, school books on the table next to my architectural plans. Femi came over more often, shaking his head like, "This is the man I knew was in there." On Grace's birthday, we put up cheap balloons and a lopsided banner. I cooked, actually cooked, with her, teaching me, laughing at how serious I was about it. We called Ada out, turned off the lights, brought the cake, sang loudly, badly. Grace glowed in that soft way of someone who's not used to being celebrated. Then Ada handed her a big handmade card. On the front, 3 stick figures holding hands under a big yellow sun. Inside, in her best handwriting, "To Auntie Grace, the best mom in the whole world. I love you. From Ada." Grace covered her mouth, tears spilling over. Pulled Ada into a hug that said, everything. I stepped in and wrapped my arms around both of them. And that right there was our family. Now here's where I leave it with you, because this is bigger than just my story. Stella never came back to fight. Maybe she was ashamed. Maybe she found another lifeboat. Maybe she told herself some story where she was the victim. I don't know. What I do know is this, the law. The culture people's opinions. They all have a lot to say about real mothers, real families, who has rights, who has titles. But nobody wrote a rule book for the woman who sits by a child's bed at 2 a.m. with no blood tie. Just love. So I want to hear from you. Was I wrong to close the door on the woman who gave my daughter life, but also gave her abandonment? Was I wrong to choose the woman who came in as the help and became the heart of our home, if it were you? Would you have given Stella another chance? Let her push Grace out to make space for her guilt, or do you believe like I've come to believe that family is the people who stay, not just the people who share your DNA? Do you think that's fair? Tell me in the comments. Argue with me if you want. Share your own story if you've ever had to choose between blood and loyalty, between what looks right on paper and what feels right in your gut. I read those comments, I really do. And there's someone out there who needs to see they're not alone in this kind of mess. If this story hit you anywhere deep, don't just scroll away. Hit like, so it reaches more people. Stuck in the same question, subscribe. If you want more real stories like this, and drop where you're watching from, and what you would have done in my place. Because this isn't just my life anymore. It's a conversation all of us need to have.